We'll move on to the confirmation of minutes. Would anybody like to discuss those minutes? No? That being said, would anybody like to move that they be accepted? Moved by Councillor Kunzman. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Doyle. Any discussion? All right. I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour of accepting the report? Councillor Doyle?
Sorry.
That's unanimous and carried. We'll move on to item 2 on today's agenda, the iVolve project preliminary business case. Would any members of the committee like to ask the relevant officer about this matter today? Would anybody like to move it then? Councillor Johnnick, seconded by Councillor Doyle. Any discussion? Mayor?
Thank you, Chair. I also appreciate that councillors have had a rather lengthy number of briefings about the iVolve project, which is looking how we manage our software and what our path is going forward. And we also had a briefing from KPMG as well for that independent review on our path. It's probably an area that this council hasn't managed well in the past. It's certainly spent a lot of money on. So I guess just want to commend the organisation for the thoroughness to make sure that as we go forward with our architecture, that we do pick an architecture that is vendor agnostic, and that we, I guess, hasten slowly, make sure that we're really making sure that we're doing the right thing, that we have that proper integration, and that whatever we do will give a benefit to residents. So if we're spending money, what are the benefits to the residents? Is it going to cost less? Is it going to be more efficient service and so on? So I just want to let residents know that it's very much front of mind of us in looking at any investment here, that we're always looking at what are the benefits to the residents for spending money in this area. So thank you for this approach.
Thank you, Mayor. Any further comments? All right, I'll put the matter to the vote that the recommendation is accepted in its form. Go around the room, that's unanimous and carried. I will move on to item 3 of today's agenda, the repeal of previous council decision for new trustee permit over reserve for recreation purposes, Anzac Park Sports and Recreation Club Incorporated. Would anybody like to ask the relevant officer, Mayor?
Good morning, Mayor, Councillors and Sonia. I'm Kerry Perrott from Property Services, Acting Property Services Manager.
Thank you, Ms Perrott. I just want to understand why we're looking to repeal this and how are the current arrangements and what's going on. I guess moving forward, what's the plan there? I know this is a facility that the residents use a lot.
The Anzac Park Sports and Recreation Club have managed this facility for quite a number of years. They felt it was time to relinquish their responsibilities for the management of the hall, and they advised Council in late 2020 of their desire to hand back the facility. Council has included the asset in their bookable spaces, and they've made this available for the general public and community groups to use the hall.
Okay. Thank you, Ms Perrott.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Further questions? Thank you. Would anybody like to move the acceptance of the recommendations? Mayor Harding, seconded by Councillor Milligan. Any discussion on the matter? Well, we'll put that matter to the vote. Those in favour? Around the room, that's unanimous and carried. Item 4 on today's agenda is the proposed fees and charges to apply from 1 July 2021. Would anybody like to ask questions of the relevant officer? All right. Would anybody like to move? Mayor Harding, seconded by Councillor Kunzelman. Any discussion? All right, well, I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour of accepting recommendations A through C? That's unanimous and carried. We'll move on to item 5 on today's agenda, the fees and charges for George Elder Tennis Centre. Does anybody have any questions of the relevant officer? Mayor Harding, call forward. Mr. Mollenhauer.
Morning, Mayor and Councillors. Paul Mollenhauer, Treasury Accounting Manager.
Thank you. Mr Millenhart, obviously the way that these tennis courts, which are very popular, are being managed has changed. Do you mind outlining how residents can now book them and use these tennis courts?
Mayor, unfortunately, I can't speak to the particulars of the actual facility itself. I would need to defer to a colleague to be able to do that. I can talk to you around the issues of the fees and charges in terms of the presentation of the report, but the facility itself, I would need to get that from a colleague. Yeah, sorry.
Thank you, Mr Millenhart. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair, Mayor, Councillors. Ben Pohl, General Manager, Community, Cultural and Economic Development.
Through the Chair, again, I guess the management of these tennis courts has changed. What's changed from a resident's perspective, or if anything has changed?
Yes, certainly. Thank you, Mayor. So Council has taken on operational management of the George Elder Tennis Centre. The ability for the general public or the established users of the centre has not changed. There's been a slight change in fee structure, but other than that, the ability for the general public or clubs or coaches to book and utilise the centre has been maintained. They can contact the centre. We have a sport and recreational officer in place and dealing with all of those user groups as and when needed at the facility.
Okay. So, Mr Pohl, I can see that the Ipswich Midweek Ladies Tennis Club, the Tuesday Ladies Social Tennis Club and the local Ipswich tennis clubs and Tennis Queensland obviously use this. Has there been an increase in fees for usage?
Mayor, if I may take that on notice to be detailed and exact, I can say that the approach of Council taking over management has to ensure that there isn't a significant increase in costs for associated user groups, but I would have to, Mayor, take that on notice. Actually, if I may, the Council officer actually in charge of that transition has just joined us, and if I may defer to him.
We're very passionate about tennis here. Thank you, Mr Pohl. Thank you, Chair. That's okay.
I've just, if I can, just come from a meeting with some of the Humanities Buildings tenants. So,
Yes. Should you say your name?
our Humanities Building tenants, user groups, community groups. I've just come from a meeting with them. Hence, I'm just trying to fit it all in for you. Okay. My apologies.
That's okay.
With respect, you need to be match fit.
And I do run 5K in the morning.
My apologies, Don. I couldn't resist.
My apologies.
Last for your name and position. as well.
Don Stewart, Manager, Community and Cultural
Yeah.
Services.
I know Mr Stewart usually all over these things, but with the George Elder Tennis Centre,
Yep.
obviously change in management, will there be an increase of fees, or what are the changes for residents?
No, the fees that we've applied are commensurate with all our other tennis facilities in the city. I don't have the paper in front of me, but $15 for the casual hire. They are noted in the paper. We did undertake a study and review of other facilities in the city and also southeast corner of Queensland, just to ensure that we weren't placing fees at a price greater than our competitors or similar
Right.
facilities.
Okay. It does look like, I think we've brought the fees down from the
Well, we
previous
have
ones.
the Queen's Park don't advertise their fees as clearly, but As a community asset, it's commensurate with the community fees that we have down at the Springfield Central Courts
Right.
facility, so that the community aren't disadvantaged by a potential, the operation of the venue at a commercial position.
Okay. I guess I'd be very interested to know what the usage will be, and to see that we've I guess hit it at the right level as well.
We believe that the George Alder, the only clay courts facility or premium facility in the town. We believe, based on feedback from Queensland Tennis and also our own undertaking in rehabbing the facility, that the use will be well engaged, I guess, more so than what they were previously under the commercial operation. Queensland Tennis were very, very keen to ensure that we maintained a clay facility here in Ipswich. We do secure significant tournaments that are supported by Queensland Tennis into Ipswich as a result of the clay court. The number of that we have and the condition that they're now in. We have just completed a very significant rehab of those surfaces to make them match fit for the seniors tournament this weekend.
That's right. Yeah. How many people are expecting to that seniors tournament?
Well, they're very, very hopeful. They've given me an indication under a lot of their permit applications of upwards of 500 people a day through the venue, not at any one time. Obviously, it'll be spectators watching those people they know playing. But they're very, very confident they'll have a very popular tournament given the condition of the courts and the current weather for them to play in.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. Thank you for running over here. Thank you, Chair.
Would anybody like to move recommendation item B? Councillor Doyle, seconded by Mayor Harding. Any discussion? Put the matter to the vote. Those in favour of accepting recommendation A and B, looking around the room, that's unanimous and carried. Item 6 on today's agenda, procurement, cultural landscape values investigation agreement. Would any members of the committee like to ask questions on this matter? No? Would anybody like to move it? Mayor Harding, seconded by Councillor Milligan. Any discussion? Alright, well, we will move to the vote. Those in favour of accepting recommendation A through C. That's unanimous and carried. Item 7 today is for another procurement matter, parking machines and communication and management system. Interesting title. Would any members of the committee like to ask the relevant officer any questions on this?
No.
No? Would anybody like to move recommendation A through C? Councillor Kunzelman, seconded by Councillor Milligan. Any discussion? No discussion. We'll proceed to the vote. Those in favour of accepting recommendation A through C? Looking around the room, that's unanimous and carried. Is that right? Item 8 on today's agenda is procurement, annual support and upgrade renewal Kronos software. Any members of the committee seeking to ask questions? All right. Would anybody like to move recommendation A through C? Councillor Doyle. Any seconder? Mayor Harding. Any discussion? All right, I'll put that matter to the vote. Those in favour of accepting A through C? It's unanimous and carried. Item 9 is procurement, enhancement, upgrade, support and subscription renewal of objective software. Any questions from the committee? No? Would anybody like to move recommendations A through C? Or A and B, sorry. Councillor Jonik, seconded by Mayor Harding. Any discussion? No? All right, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour of accepting recommendation A and B? That's unanimous and carried. The last item for today is another procurement matter, the renewal of liquid petroleum gas for Bundamba and Goodna Aquatic Centres. Do any members of the committee, Mayor Harding? Call on Mr. White.
Richard White, Manager of Procurement.
Hi, Mr. White, and thank you through the chair. Noting the dollar amount for this procurement, I'm asking why is this coming to council and not being dealt with operationally? Was there a reason?
Because we are not seeking a quote or tender. So over $15,000 require an exemption from council. And the reason we're not seeking a quote or tender is they have assets on site. We are, however, this is one of those ones, part of the centralisation of procurement, cleaning up things, have identified that previously we hadn't sought exemptions, even though we had continued to enter into agreements. So they are reviewing the situation now in the next year.
So it's because it's sole source and we're not going out to the market?
Yes, correct.
Thank you, Mr. White.
Yes. Councillor Quimby.
Microphone. Sorry.
What firm is doing the other pools?
I would have to come back and check. I'm sorry.
Just seems odd that they're only doing 2 out of 6.
They may be doing others, but this is about the timing of this agreement. So I will come back and confirm via email.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate
All our
that's an
pools
option.
heated? I know that's probably,
That's
that could be.
even not sure. I would have to come back as well. I'm
I
sorry.
think
Okay.
so.
Rosewood.
Lovely.
There we
They're
go.
all heated. There you go.
It does get a little chilly. Yeah.
All right, well, that'll be a question on notice.
I'll take both as actions. Yep.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Mr. White.
Thank you.
Would any members of the committee like to move recommendation A through C? Councillor Johnnick, do we have a seconder? Councillor Milligan, any discussion? I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour of accepting the recommendations, that's unanimous and carried. There's no notices of motion or matters arising. I will call the meeting to a close at 11:52 a.m.